Hello, in this demo we're going to demonstrate how to add user sign up and authentication to our iOS app. In particular, we're going to be using the Parse framework for this. We'll show you how to log in and sign up a user using Parse, and we'll also show how Parse integrates with Facebook and lets us use Facebook for managing our users. And we're going to write our application in Swift. So I'm going to get started by going into Xcode and creating a brand new project, and I'll call this my Parse login demo. And you'll notice I'm using the Swift language here. And I'm going to simply have a minimal UI here just to demonstrate that I've logged in. I'm going to put a label on the screen, and we'll put it up here toward the top, and I'll just say user not logged in, and once we have a user logged in, we'll change that to display the user information. Alright, so that's the UI here, and what I want to do is use Parse's UI to add a screen or a controller that will actually prompt the user to either sign up or log in if they've already got an account. So the first thing I need to do is go over to parse.com and grab a copy of their SDK. So Parse is a mobile backend as a service, and if I scroll to the very bottom here, I'll see this download link. And once I've got that, I'm going to use iOS, so I'm just going to download the SDK here. And once it's downloaded, I'm going to have it unpacked here in my directory, and I'm using Parse library 1.7.4. Having downloaded the framework, I now need to add the Parse framework to my iOS project here. So I'm going to go back to this directory, and I need to download I need to copy a number of files into this. So in my Parse library 1.7.4, I need the Parse framework, the Bolts framework, and the Parse UI framework. And later we're going to be doing Facebook integration as well. So I'm just going to go ahead and grab that Parse Facebook utils v4.framework. I'm going to grab these 4 files, and I'm going to add them to my Xcode project, and make sure you click that copy so your project becomes an independent unit that you can share with other people. And I'm going to put all these into a new group. And we'll call this frameworks. And in addition to these 4, there's a number of iOS frameworks that these Parse frameworks are dependent on. And these are all listed in the Parse documentation, so you can look them up there. I'm just going to go quickly add them. There's quite a few of them, so you'll find this out on the Parse website. So to do this, we're going to go down to our project settings here, and at the very bottom you'll see this linked frameworks and library, and we're going to go in here and simply add them. Alright, now I have my Xcode project set up. So the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to create a Parse instance in the cloud using Parse's website, and then I'm going to associate this particular application with it. So returning to our web browser, I've already created an account, so you'll need to sign up for a free account. on Parse, and I'm going to create a new application, and I'll call this my login demo. And there it is. And if we go into the core here, we can grab our keys under config, under settings, keys, and we're going to need two pieces of info. We're going to need the application ID in the client key, and so returning to my code, in our app delegate, we're going to add some code. So the first thing I need to do is import parse, and inside my application did finish launching with options, I need to associate, I need to put some boilerplate code here to let Parse know which application instance, along with some other options. So I'm just going to add some code here. So we're going to enable data store, and then I'm going to say parse set application ID, and I'm going to paste that string that we just copied for the application ID, and then I'm going to return to the web browser and get the client key, and I've got that now in my buffer, and we're going to replace this here with our client key. And I'm going to do one more thing. I'm just going to turn on PF Analytics, and we'll put our launch options in here, and for the block we're just passing nil. Okay, so this will basically enable Parse to keep some analytics data for us. So that's all I need to do here for now. And now let's go back into our view controller and our UI code here. And what we want to do is add some logic that when our app pops up, if we don't have an authenticated user, we pop up a screen that allows the user to create a new account with our application or sign in using an existing one. So to do this, I'm going to override my view did appear. So once the view comes up, and I'll call the superclass view did appear, pass in animated, and so I'm going to do a conditional here that says, do I have an authenticated user? But before I do that, let me add the parses. In this file I need two different imports. I need the Parse framework as well as the UI components from Parse. And so down here I'm going to check, and the way I do this is I simply say if, and there is a class called pfuser in the Parse framework, and if pfuser has a static method current user, and if that gives me something nil, then I know that I don't have a user, and I want to, instead of going to that initial screen, I actually want to put up that login/signup view. So at this point I can create a PF login view controller. So I'll do that and assign it to a variable called login control, and this is called PF login, the I is capital, view controller. And we're going to set some properties on this. First of all, we need to tell it which fields we want displayed. And so we're going to say login fields equals, and then I'm going to say PF login fields dot username and password, and I'm going to OR that together with the actual login button. And I also need to set the delegate of the login controller to be the current controller. So I'm going to say the login delegate here is going to be self, and that means I need to implement a delegate. In fact, I'm going to have two view controllers. I'm going to have both the PF login view controller, and I'm also going to have the optional sign up controller here. So my class needs to implement two delegate protocols. So it's going to implement PF login view controller delegate and PF sign up view controller delegate. And we'll look at what methods we need in a moment on those. So that's the login controller, but I'm also going to create myself a sign up controller. And so we use the variable, I'll call it sign up control, and this is going to be equal to PF sign up view controller. And we're going to tell this one that its delegate is also self, and we're also going to set the login view controller or sign up view controller property on our login control to be this particular controller. Now, having done that, now we actually need to get the login view controller to appear on the screen, giving the user the option to type in a username, password, as well as a sign up. So I'm going to say self.present view controller, and we'll have it present the login control. We want it animated, and for completion we're just going to put a nil, and we're going to handle all of the responses to the different methods that these controllers call as they progress. So the methods I need to override now on those delegates are as follows. First of all, on the login view controller, I have several here. So I have func view login controller, login view controller, and should login with username. I need this one, and I also need one called did login user. So funct login view controller did login user, and we need one did fail and cancel. So the user has the option to cancel the login as well. Alright, so on these, for now, we could put more useful code here, but I'm just going to put some messages so we know that these were called. Okay, the more interesting one is what happens when this is called. So if the user, when the user enters the data on the form that's displayed, this method is going to get called, and so we can do some edit checks here. We can actually make sure that we have a username and password, that those are not blank. So I'm going to just check the string length on the username that I'm passed here. So if that's greater than 0 and the password that I'm given is greater than 0, that's good. Then I can proceed with the process here. So we're going to return true. But if this is not true, we want to notify the user that, hey, you need to do something here. You did not provide enough information for us to log you in. So we're going to put up an alert here. So I'll do a UI alert view, and we'll pass this. Let's see here. Let me scroll back so I can see what I'm doing. So we want this one right here, and the message we'll put up, we'll simply say missing login info, and that was the title. The actual message is make sure you fill in the username and password, and the delegate will just set to nil, and we'll simply put an OK button, which will dismiss this. And then once we've created the alert, we need to show it, and then we need to return false to let Parse know that, hey, we don't have valid credentials yet. And the last thing we need to do here is when we actually get the login. So when the user did log in, we're going to get the user info here, so we can first of all dismiss the login view controller. So we'll dismiss animated Okay, and the other thing we'll do is let's put an outlet on our label, on our storyboard. And we'll call it login message. And when the user logs in successfully, after we've dismissed this, we'll just update the message on that. So we'll say self.login message.text is equal to user email. Okay, so let's go ahead and run this. Okay, so you can see that the PF user, current user returned nil, and so now I get the standard Parse login screen. But one of the buttons I'm actually missing here is sign up, so let's go back and fix that and make sure we add the sign up. So we'll go back in here, and in my view did appear, I forgot one flag here. We also want to turn on PF login fields.signup button. And if I run now, now you can see I have that blue sign up button on the bottom, so I don't have an account right now for this app. It's brand new. So I'm going to go into sign up here, and we'll say Joe, password Joe, and for an email, I'll just use my junk email, and we'll click sign up. And nothing happens because we didn't actually implement the sign up views delegate. So let's go back in, and what we really want to do here is when the sign up controller finishes, we do have a valid user at that point. So we can do the same thing we did when a login view controller finishes. So we need to override the sign up view controllers did sign user up, and technically we should probably implement the rest of the delegates there as well, because the user might cancel out of that sign up and so forth. But for now we'll just dismiss, and let's rerun and try to sign up another user. And let me just turn off breakpoints. And so here we are, we'll sign up, we'll use a different name now. And when we sign up the user, now it actually clears it, and now it set the actual label up to that user's email address, So now we've actually authenticated the user. So now let's go back and see if we can log in. So in order to do that, I didn't put a log out button here. So even if I kill the app and rerun it, it's going to go immediately to the screen. Let's just test that and demonstrate it, because it remembers that user's oh, I guess it didn't. It did. We didn't initialize the label to the current PF user. So it's still logged in. So the quick fix for this right now, we could put a login button, but I'm just going to go ahead and delete the app, and that will release all its data as well as that user session. So now if we run again, we should see the form, and sure enough we do. So let's go ahead and use that user we just created, and now we're logged in. As a next step, now let's add Facebook authentication as an option to this application. So I'm logged into my Facebook account, and if you go to developers.facebook.com/apps, you can create new Facebook apps, and we're going to create a new Facebook application to represent this iOS app. But before I do that, I need to download the iOS SDK. So down on the bottom of the screen, if you click on iOS SDK, you can click download the SDK, and you can actually install it. So there's an installer, and I've got it installed here on my Mac, and it's under Documents, Facebook SDK. So this is where it's installed, and I need to grab several dependencies out of here as well. These three frameworks down here, so Core Kit, Login Kit, and Share Kit, all need to be added to my Xcode project in order to integrate with Facebook. So I'm going to go ahead and do that right now. I'm going to drag these three, oops, let me change my view to Explore here, and I'm going to drag these into my framework group. And I'm going to copy them. And previously, I copied the Parse Facebook Utils v4. We need that as well here, but I'm all set with that. And the other thing we need to do, this framework is written in Objective-C. So in order to make it visible to my Swift application, I need to create a bridging header. And the easiest way to do this, it's kind of a roundabout way, but I'm just going to go in here and create a new Cocoa Touch class, and this is just going to be a junk thing that I'll delete this controller. But the important thing is I'm going to switch to Objective-C here, and when I do this, it's going to prompt me and say, do you want a bridge header added? Right here, and I'm going to say yes, and you'll notice down here in my project now a bridge header shows up. So I'm going to go ahead and delete the controller I just created to kind of force that to happen. I don't need that controller. I simply need this guy right here. And inside this file, I need to put a couple of import statements in order to get my Facebook functionality visible in my Swift world. So I'm going to import the Facebook SDK core kit slash Facebook SDK core kit.h. And the other thing I need is the Parse Facebook Utils v4. Parse Facebook Utils v4. So I need these two imports in my bridging header here in order for the Facebook functionality to be visible to us in our Swift code. The next thing I need to do is go back to the Facebook website here, and I need to create a new application. So I'm going to add an iOS app, and I'll call it Parse Login Test, and I'll create a new Facebook ID for it. And we'll keep this as no, and we'll choose a category, whatever, create this app. Okay, and then Facebook gives you a little guideline here on how to go about doing this. One of the things we need to do is configure our info plist, and we need to add some information to it. So here is the ID of the application that was just installed. So I need to go into my plist and add a Facebook app ID property. So let's do that right now. Okay, that's a little tedious, but that's the actual setup in my properties. And then we need to also insert our bundle identifier, and we can get that in our general properties. So if we select up here and we go to general, this is our bundle identifier. And the name is Parse Login Demo. And then when we click next, okay, now there's a whole bunch of other instructions, and we'll just kind of skip over to this and go right into the app. And under settings, we need to put a contact info, and we also need in this, we need to save this, and then in our status and review, okay, I thought I just set my contact info. Alright, so there's that. So make sure you put a contact email in there and then change this to yes. Make it public. Okay, so this should take care of everything on the Facebook side, and now we need to add some additional code to our project. So we'll go back into Xcode, and down in my app delegate, there's several things I need to do here. First, I need to add a call to my did finish launching with options to initialize the Facebook application. So I can do that as follows. So I'm going to call Facebook utils.initialize Facebook application with launch options, and the only thing we need here is our launch options. And then I need to override a couple of additional methods. Down here I need to provide a method called application did become active. So we'll say func application did become active, and inside here the code I need to place here is simply going to be this call. So I'm going to call the Facebook SDK app events dot activate app, and then there's one other method that we need to call. What's this complaining about? Oh yes, this was already stubbed out above, so let me just delete that. And the remaining method that I need is called Authentication. Okay, that's all I needed there. And then over in the view controller, we have a couple of things we need to do here. First of all, we want to turn on the Facebook button. So we're going to add right here, pf login fields Facebook. And then we also need to set some additional properties on the controller. Because we're using Facebook, we need to specify what kind of permissions we're asking for Facebook. So we'll say control login controls Facebook permissions attribute is equal to, and this is an array of permissions, and all we want is friends about me. So there are others that you could look up. So we need that. And that should do it. I think we now should have a Facebook button enabled for Facebook login. So first let me go to the app. Yeah, let's kill this. And we'll go to the app and we'll delete this so we don't have a session anymore. And then we'll go ahead and rerun. And there's my login with Facebook, and if I click this, okay, it looks like we're missing something. Okay, I think I might have done something wrong in my info file. Okay, I think I've rearranged these and got them right. Let's try again. Alright, so this time it's proceeding with the login, so now it's putting up my profile name here, and it's saying, do you give permission? And if I say okay, at this point I'm now logged in. So there you have it. Very simple to use the Parse framework to get your user logged in and authenticated, or even to sign up and manage users.